When I walked into the courtroom, my daughter giggled and my son-in-law shook his head. The judge went pale, his hand shaking as he whispered, "My God. Is that really him?" Everyone turned and stared. Nobody had a clue who I really was until that day. My name is Ethan Williams, I'm 57 years old, and I live in Denver, Colorado. For most of my life, I worked as an investigative journalist, specializing in corruption and corporate fraud. People used to call me the man who could find the truth in silence, because I had a reputation for digging deep and exposing powerful people. I retired a few years ago, after my wife passed away. Since then, I've been living a quiet life, spending most of my time with my daughter Eva and her husband Ryan. Eva is 27, bright, kind-hearted, and incredibly strong. She's a lawyer, and she's always been my pride. She lost her mother at a young age, so we were always close. Ryan, her husband, seemed charming at first, the kind of man who could light up a room. But as I would later learn, some lights shine brightest before they burn everything around them to ash. The story begins a year ago. It was Eva's birthday. I had planned a small dinner for her, nothing extravagant, just family and close friends. Ryan, her husband, didn't show up. He called halfway through the dinner, saying he had to work late. Eva smiled politely, but I could see the disappointment behind her eyes. After everyone left, she sat next to me on the porch, wrapped in her mother's old shawl. "Dad," she said quietly, "do you ever get the feeling someone you love is hiding something from you?" I didn't know how to answer then, but those words would echo in my head for months. A few weeks later, I noticed changes. Ryan started acting cold, distant. Eva would come to visit alone, her eyes red from crying. When I asked her, she said everything was fine, but I knew my daughter too well. Something was wrong. Then, one night, around midnight, I got a call from her. Her voice was trembling. "Dad, can I come over?" Within half an hour, she was at my door, her hands shaking. She handed me her phone. "He's been cheating on me," she said, her voice breaking. "With my best friend, Jenna." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Ryan, the man who swore to love her, the man who toasted to family every Sunday, had been lying all along. Eva wanted to leave him, but Ryan wasn't going to make it easy. They had a shared business, a house under both names, and according to her, he had started moving money around, hiding assets. She was afraid he'd take everything she worked for. That's when I decided I wouldn't sit back anymore. I may have been retired, but my instincts never left me. Over the next few weeks, I started digging, quietly, carefully. What I found made my blood run cold. Ryan wasn't just cheating. He was running a series of fraudulent real estate deals, using Eva's firm to launder money. He forged her signatures, used her credentials, and left a paper trail that would make her look complicit if it ever came to light. He was setting her up to take the fall. I knew if I confronted him directly, he'd just deny it. So I played along. I visited their house often, pretending to be the clueless old dad. But every time he stepped away, I'd scan his desk, note the files, and quietly make copies. I reached out to a few of my old contacts, one of them a federal investigator. Together, we built a case. But there was one thing I didn't tell anyone, not even Eva. Because I had discovered something far darker. Ryan wasn't working alone. Jenna, Eva's so-called best friend, was helping him, and the two had a plan to move out of the country once the money was laundered. They even had plane tickets booked under fake names. And the cherry on top, they were planning to file a lawsuit against Eva, accusing her of embezzlement. They wanted to ruin her completely before disappearing with millions. It took me 3 sleepless months to gather every shred of evidence. And then, I waited. When the lawsuit finally came, Eva broke down. She thought her life was over. Ryan stood there, pretending to be heartbroken, telling her, "It's for the best." Jenna acted like she was trying to mediate. I wanted to crush them both, but I stayed silent. Instead, I told Eva, "Don't fight this yet. Let them think they've won." She didn't understand why, but she trusted me. A few weeks later, the court date arrived. That morning, Eva was pale, exhausted, and barely holding herself together. Ryan smirked as he entered the courtroom, Jenna by his side. He didn't even bother hiding it anymore. When I walked in, I saw my daughter sitting on the bench, tears in her eyes. I smiled at her, reassuringly. Then, when the judge entered, I saw something unexpected. He went pale. His hand trembled as he whispered to the bailiff, "My God, is that really him?" Ryan frowned. Eva looked confused. Everyone turned to me. Nobody had any idea who I really was, not even my daughter. You see, years ago, before I retired, I had worked undercover for the federal government as part of a joint task force on white-collar crime. I was one of their top field investigators. My identity had been sealed after a major case to protect me from retaliation. Only a handful of people in the entire country knew who I was, and one of them was the judge sitting before us. I stepped forward and said calmly, "Your Honor, before we proceed, I'd like to submit evidence to the court." Ryan chuckled. "What evidence could you possibly have, old man?" I handed the folder to the bailiff. Inside were bank statements, transfer records, fake passports, and a recorded phone call between Ryan and Jenna. In that call, Ryan was bragging about how he was going to destroy Eva's career and vanish with the money. The judge listened. The courtroom fell silent. Then, he slammed his gavel and called security. Ryan's smirk disappeared. Jenna started crying. Eva sat there frozen, her mouth slightly open, as the agents entered and handcuffed both of them. Ryan looked at me, rage in his eyes. "You set me up," he hissed. I leaned in close and said softly, "No, Ryan. You set yourself up. I just made sure the truth caught up with you." Eva burst into tears when the truth came out. She couldn't believe the lengths I had gone to protect her. The judge dismissed all charges against her, and within weeks, Ryan and Jenna were both sentenced for fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. But even after justice was served, something inside me felt broken. Watching my daughter fall apart because of someone she loved, that's a pain no parent ever forgets. One evening, a few months later, Eva came to visit me. She hugged me tight and whispered, "Dad, you saved my life. But please, promise me you'll start living again." I smiled faintly. "I already am," I said. "Because now I know you're safe." A year has passed since that day in court. Eva rebuilt her career, stronger than ever. She opened her own firm, specializing in protecting people who've been wronged. As for me, I've gone back to writing, not for the papers, but for myself. The truth has always been my weapon, and sometimes, it's the only justice we have. But every now and then, I think back to that day in the courtroom, the day everyone finally saw who I really was. And I remember the look on Ryan's face when his empire of lies came crashing down. Because in the end, revenge isn't about destroying someone. It's about making them face the truth they've been running from. And the truth always wins. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And tell me, what would you have done if you were in my place?